What's the haps? I'm Meroka, and today I'm going to be taking an early look at Crest by Eat, Create, Sleep. Crest is a god game, which is a genre which seems to be seeing a little bit of a resurgence in recent times. This one definitely tries to do something a little bit different though. It's definitely headed in a different direction from your standard god game stuff. And it is in early access, so at the moment it's very, very, very early rough stuff. I think there's quite a lot to be fleshed out here, but it definitely shows a lot of potential and something interesting, so I wanted to take a look at it today. Before we do so, we shall head into the options menu. We've got quality is, I'm pretty sure those are just your standard Unity drop down. It's you know, not very helpful, but just broadly kind of descriptive. We have resolution options, we have anti-aliasing options, which, to be honest, you wouldn't get in a lot of Unity games sort of within the game, so that's cool, as well as VSync and full screen options there, so that's cool. Sound, we've got music and sound effects on separate sliders, as well as a master volume slider, so that's cool, and then a bunch of different gameplay options as well, tooltips and various things, inverted controls and whatnot. So those are cool, including 2 different keyboard inputs as well. No Dvorak, but hey-ho, you can't win everything. Not that I use that, but I just feel like if you're going to do keyboard inputs, have all the keyboard inputs. I don't know. Anyway, we shall start a new game. Let's hop on into things. I've got a few saved games, but as I will explain, I've kind of run them into a place where I wouldn't be able to show them off very well. I got a bit of an intro where we get told that vaguely we are kind of God. In the beginning was water. We're going to sort of float around kind of in the womb as God does, I guess. In the endless ocean, you awoke alone. And you found some people, you made them in your image, blah blah blah, and you must teach them things. It's God. You're God. It's a God game. Don't tell me you didn't expect that to happen. So we have a very small tribe here on a smallish island, and we must raise these people in our image and with our own virtues and values and things. So, unlike most God games you could have a direct impact on the world. Here we kind of don't. It's mostly an observational thing, I think. As you can just kind of, you can suggest things to the people, and they can interpret your suggestions. You can, basically what we have, this is the entirety of this interface is going to be these 2 screens. These are where we will issue commandments to our people, and these are current commandments that are active in the world. And we've got 3 slots here. We've got the first slot, which I'll pick, I don't know, happy followers. So it'll highlight the huts that relate to people who are happy in the world. So basically, these are the people that this commandment applies to. Then we can have it pick another one for a target effect. So metals, iron, ores, whatever this is, ores, I guess, metals in the world. So, and then in between we have an action, so we can choose to urge them to perform a subject, urge them to not perform a subject, to prioritize a subject, to not prioritize a subject, to move to something, or to refrain from moving to something. So we have a subject, an action, and a target, and then if we click that, we will proclaim our commandment. So just via this series of basically inscriptions, symbols, and things, we will communicate to our people and tell them how to live their lives, and they will interpret it as best they can. Because we don't really have, we don't have a line of communication properly going on here. It's commandments, which is a really interesting way of doing things. So let's do some commandments, see what we can do. So, what would be a good way to start things? I feel like if we zoom in on the town, we can get a look at all the villages. So we can see an overview of all the people that live in these huts. You can see how many resources they have, how much food they have. This fills up the older they get. So you can see that's an adult character. This is a young character. I don't think there's any old people, but the bar will fill up to the top once they're old. We've got basically this fruit icon will determine you've got a eaten fruit if they're hungry, a full fruit if they're fed, and multiple fruits if they are overfed. We then got a happiness meter, which you got kind of got this purpley red one, frowny face if they're unhappy, as well as a list of all the things that would make that person happy in life. And then you've got kind of like the yellow one is sort of fairly content, and the green is pretty happy with their lot in life. And then you've got another meter which says how close they are to having a child. For some reason, I don't get this meter. I feel like that meter shouldn't go down. You don't... I feel like... It's weird. I feel like that meter should fill up if a villager is pregnant and nothing else. Whereas... Yeah, that meter can go down. It's like, what, are you becoming unpregnant? Or, I don't know. I don't know what the criteria are for them having a child, really, to be honest. Other than, I guess, that they want to. I guess there's not really criteria. That's not how people have kids. I think I'm thinking too much of a video game mindset, and I think they're trying to create kind of an actual tribe of people here who have their own drives and desires and things going on in the world. So if I urge them to have children, we've got this icon here, which is a period when followers are born, which is wonderfully vague and doesn't necessarily... I feel like that would be go forth and have kids, but I don't know that the game necessarily interprets it that way, and I think everything is deliberately left vague like that, so that, you know, it's open to interpretation by the game, by the villagers, even by you to a certain extent. So I can say, happy people should prioritize a period when followers are born. So I would feel like that should say, happy people should have more kids. That's a wonderfully vague commandment for God to be issuing to his people, I suppose. If you're happy, have a child. Okay, that's not going to get etched in any stone tablet, I don't think, but nonetheless, that is my commandment to my people. Eventually, I think there's a limit of about 9 per village. If they start going over that limit, they will migrate and start another tribe. So a couple of them have moved over here. We've got another one forming, and they'll sort of spread across the island and expand. So yeah, this is most of your interface. You can just interact with the world. We can press 1, 2, and 3 to change the time, so we can speed things up and see how the world unfolds if you let things happen. It's all kind of procedurally done. The world, you can see, kind of like tiles will change colour depending on how fertile they are. By the banks of the river, they're super fertile, and as the rains go over, they'll become a bit more fertile and go, I guess, orange, and then they go like a darker colour. And the water mechanics are a little bit... They're interesting, but they're a little bit janky, I would have said. And as far as I think it's... The rain clouds might illustrate this. In fact, if I zoom out and just watch the rivers for a bit on speed 3, and just kind of have a look at how rivers go. Basically, what you'll see over time is that... In fact, you can see that just happened over there, because there's a lot of rain over there. Ooh. Over here, this kind of area. Basically, if a tile is already kind of fertile, it has a abundant water supply because the ground is damp because there have been rains recently or it's near a river, and more water is added to it via the mechanism of rain, it'll turn a tile into, I guess essentially lake, and there doesn't seem to be a mechanic for lakes to dry up, which means that rivers and lakes can grow, like, indefinitely, and they never stop growing, which... Personally, I find absolutely fascinating to watch, but from a game actual design mechanic, it seems a little bit broken, because what this ultimately means is that slowly but surely, over the course of time, the entire island will become water, with the exception of maybe like the mountaintop, which is probably not supposed to happen, I feel. Certainly interesting, it's in a weird kind of Conway's Game of Life kind of thing, which I can't help but feel is a lot of the inspiration behind what's going on here. It's one of those things that's very, very interesting to see the mechanics at play, but you don't necessarily get to influence them as much as you might want. That said, I don't know, I don't know. I've heard reports from other people, I've asked a couple of other people I know who own this game, kind of what their experiences were with this. One player said they had a real difficulty getting the villagers to survive, within 10 minutes or so the village would die out every time. I'm not issuing any commandments here. They're thriving, look at this, they've said, aside from me saying, hey, if you're happy, have some kids, once, and commandments expire after a while, you saw there's a little timer there, so that commandment's gone, it's finished. They aren't following that commandment anymore. They're doing pretty okay, aside from, like, for a span of 65 units of time, whatever a unit of time might be within this world, they went forth and presumably had kids. Aside from that, I've issued no commandments, but they seem to be getting along pretty okay. They're expanding. If I keep running the timer faster, they will probably pop up more villages. What's this? Something going on there? Oh, I don't know what that was. Things are popping up in the world. Things are happening. It might be a graves. No! Yeah, see, they have set up another village. They're doing great. They don't need my input. Which makes me wonder why I'm even here as God, I'm just here to watch things. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a fascinating world to watch, but I don't feel like I need to do anything to play this game. It's a game that plays itself. It's mildly more interesting than Mountain, I suppose, but yeah. I have also heard from someone, Alzarath said he'd managed to create a tribe of cannibals by, I think, let's see what he did. I think he was like, happy people should perform a certain subject. No. Hungry people perform like old people, I guess? I don't know how you would do this. So, would that encourage hungry people to eat old people? As I say, it's a very broad thing. You've only got these vague symbols to work with, and it's open to interpretation. So I've not seen any crazy things like that happen in my worlds, because I guess maybe I haven't done enough crazy commandments and stuff. I guess if you were to come up with some interesting combinations of commandments, you could potentially create some interesting things. So it sounds like I could have put the requirements in there for cannibalism, but I don't know. If a villager dies, you will usually see a notification somewhere that says, so-and-so died. Why did so-and-so... There's a dead person. What are they doing? I don't know what happened there. You can usually get some information. It'll say, villager died due to old age or starvation or whatever would be, the two kind of common ones. And their hut will, fall apart to indicate that they are no longer a villager. I think one of my gripes with this is that it's really hard to determine which villager belongs to which hut. I wish there was I wish you could, click on a hut and it would indicate which villager it is. As it is, they kind of all wander all over the island, so I guess it doesn't matter too much, but it'd be interesting to know who is where, and, if someone's out doing some farming over there, I could then have a look at their hut and see kind of what their personal requirements are in life. As you can see, obviously, you got the happiness. You need to try and instill happiness in people. So they're happy because there are farm jobs and there are mining jobs available for them. They are happy because they have lots of metal, but they allegedly do not have the necessary food for survival. But I suppose they personally don't, but the tribe's doing pretty well. What you can do is I could then say, hey, overfed people should prioritize underfed people. I'll do that. And we'll watch them, see what will they do. Are they going to give food to the hungry? Maybe. I think the idea is that you kind of can instill values in these people, so by running a commandment like that, I should be able to basically create a sense of charity amongst the people, perhaps, by commanding the people that they should give to people less fortunate themselves. I don't know. Like I say, you can basically instill cannibalism, I guess, to a certain extent. One thing I suppose would be interesting to do, because I guess I already farmed them to extinction. There is an icon down here for antelopes. At the very start of the world each time, there does seem to be antelopes available. They don't seem to live very long. These people seem to have no sense of... Well, they are, I suppose, primitive tribal people, but they have no regard for whether or not they've hunted a creature to extinction. And antelopes go extinct pretty dang fast in this. So I guess, Act 1 is if there is a desert in the world, which, FYI, that applies to everybody, maybe don't prioritize antelope? Run that as a commandment. That's not going to do anything here, I don't think, because there are no antelope for them to deprioritize. I don't know whether my cannibalism thing's doing anything else. So, hungry people prioritize old people. Try that, I don't know. I want to see if I can figure out the key to cannibalism here, just because that sounds so crazy. I don't know if it's going to happen. One thing I will note, this is definitely a major issue at this point in the game, almost game-breaking at this stage. Oh, yep. Died by district being flooded. Oh, I see. That's died by drowning. That's interesting that most of them can walk across the river for, no reason, but one of them died by drowning. Huh. Yeah, as the rivers grow and expand, they will encroach on villages and destroy them. Although at the same time, I've also seen huts just stood in the middle of the river, so it doesn't always seem to be an issue, which is kind of weird. It's they can wade through rivers quite comfortably, and I've seen them live in the rivers, but then some of them seem to drown. That's very strange. Who knows? Yeah, where was I? I had a train of thought that was ruined by people being drowned. I don't know. It's an interesting concept, it definitely is. Oh yeah, the one big issue I have is that performance-wise, the performance tanks over time. It starts out running great, I can run this, great 120 FPS plus smoothly when I start the game and there's not much going on. At present, it's dropped down to about 80 frames per second. I can guarantee that if I were to run it at full speed, it's going to go slower and slower and slower, and it's just going to go slower even if you run it on a higher simulation speed as well. It's dropping down to about 70, maybe a little bit less from time to time, and I think it's mostly seems to be tied to the population in the world. As you issue commandments, And as the population grows, I think the AI of all the people, it needs to consider the commandments more often. So you've got, at this point in time, I've got probably 15-ish people in the world, I don't know. If you upgrade it to 20, 25, 30 people in the world, they all then need to be checking the commandments. The AI routines, I presume, need to check the commandments to see what they should be doing more and more and more often. And it just seems to get bogged down with that. And, well, running it at standard speed 1 doesn't seem to have any issues. If you run it at speed 3, I guess it just needs to check for AI changes and routines and paths and whatever it's trying to do in the world 3 times more frequently. So it just causes even more issues and even more frame rate drops, which is kind of a major problem at this stage. I would like to see that very, very much fixed before I could give any kind of hearty recommendation to this kind of game. Right now, that is pretty much a broken thing. And I would say, yeah, keep an eye on making sure that's fixed before you invest in this thing. But I will say that I definitely think it's got some promise. Right now, it's pretty shallow. What did they die of? You've got these very limited commands. I mean, we've got happy, sad, antelopes, young, old, hungry, overfed, is there forest, is there desert, food, metal, and babies are the commands that you have to work with. It's a pretty limited palette, and I don't know how many effects you can possibly achieve with this. Now, the devs say a current stage is a standard playthrough of this game should take 15 minutes to half an hour. And I've been playing this for 15 minutes now. So this is kind of about as much as you really will get out of a gameplay. By the time it's done, they're hoping that a playthrough of a world will take somewhere in the region of 2 hours. What exactly a completion state would entail, I'm not rightly sure. Because as far as I'm aware, the only completion state is everybody dies and you lose right now. It may be that they actually plan to add some kind of objective goals. I'd like to see sort of like achieve a certain happiness within the world, or achieve a certain population within the world. Though, you know, you can get fairly standard God game things, but things that you would actually need to actually put some considerable thought and work into. Right now, whether people are happy seems to have no real bearing on things, and yeah, I feel like by making that into an objective, there's kind of an incentive for me to get involved. Right now, it really doesn't matter what I do. It's like, okay, hungry people, prioritize, metal, go. Antelopes, do, old people. Disregard that one. I did not think through the implications of that one when I put that commandment out there. Antelopes should do old people, maybe not. Ooh, yeah. So yeah, it's pretty limited right now, but I definitely think there's definitely the core of something really fascinating waiting to be unveiled in here. I think by fleshing it out, adding some objective, adding a lot more commandments, just adding generally more mechanics, there could be something really, really interesting in here. Right now, I just feel like don't get me wrong, it is a fascinating world to watch, just to see how things play out, even without getting involved, just sitting, staring at an island with it running at triple speed. If it didn't run at single-digit frame rates later game, I'd be quite happy to sit and watch just the world go by for a while, but it doesn't make much of a game, you know? But I definitely think there's the core of something really cool in here. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, I'll say that much for it. Oh look, there's our rivers expanding again, they're going to reach that lake. That's kind of cool. I'd love to see some sort of erosion. I'd like to see rivers carve actual landscape out. That would be really cool as well. Maybe that's asking too much, I don't know. Either way, yeah, Crest, I do think this one to keep an eye on. I don't necessarily feel like I can give it a recommendation right now, I gotta say. Although it is fairly cheap. If you're intrigued by it, it is only £3.99 your regional equivalent, and they got a little bit of a discount going on because it is the summer sale right at this stage. But obviously, you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of, you're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck right at this stage. I do think that later down the line, yeah, this could be interesting, and you should probably keep an eye on it. So this is Crest. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka. I'll see you next time.